This week is Surreal week, along with probably next week. And today we're just going to be going over how to construct something using multiple photographs. We're going to be constructing this mermaid, scary mermaid scene using some photographs that I've taken and also found on the internet. I've provided these to you, but they really were just a basic search for sharks. There's one that's an iceberg, some bubbles, and then dark clouds. And then this photograph that I've taken myself. And what we're going to do is we're going to put these all together and use various tools and just show you the way I work when I'm constructing a surreal image. So let's get started. Let's start with a new document. So I'm going to select File, New here. And I'm going to make the pixel width 2400 by 2400. And the resolution is going to be 300. That will make it an 8 by 8 inch piece. RGB color is what we'll be working in, and we're going to go ahead and hit create. Let's start with making the background a layer by double clicking it, hitting OK, and I'm going to invert this white layer because I don't want to start with white, I want to start with black. Command I inverts the layer, as we know from masks. We are now going to start bringing in a couple of photographs into this workspace. You can either drag them in and rasterize the layer. I'm just going to go ahead and select File, Open, and just open the girl and shark 1 image. You can open all these into a separate tab if you'd like by just shift selecting it. Maybe we'll just go ahead and just import everything and just have them in their own separate layers. So I'm going to go ahead and open them by clicking Open, and what you will see beside a bunch of dialogues is that they all open up into separate tabs, which is fine for me. I'm going to go ahead and go to our Untitled tab, and before starting, let's go ahead and save this as Mermaid. And I'm going to save it into the Surreal Mermaid folder that I've created and hit OK. So we've got something and it's already saved. So I'm going to now find the Shark 1 image. I'm going to jump to that. I'm going to select it by going Edit or Select All, and that'll select all the pixels in this area. I'm going to copy them, Command C, and then I'm going to jump back to my mermaid and Command V and paste it in. And here is the shark image. It's a little small, but at least I know it's there. And I'm going to name this layer Shark 1. I'm now going to go to the girl image, and I'm going to select all of it. So select all. I'm going to copy it, Command C, and I'm going to go back to my mermaid and Command V, and notice how much bigger this one is, and I'm going to call this girl. And we're going to be starting with both of these first. So let's go ahead. You can even close this girl tab. We don't need it any longer. And then close this shark tab. This way there's less tabs to worry about. So let's get started. I'm going to move this girl tab. I'm using my move tool, and I'm on the girl layer, as you can see. I'm just going to move this so it's centered. And what I'm going to need to do is take her out of the frame. And the idea here is where this the shirt line is going to be. That's where the shark tail is going to be. I'm going to need the hands as well. So we're going to go ahead and select our tool, our object select tool, and see how good of a job it does. So I'm just marqueing around the girl. I only need the part right up to this point, and I'm going to select, and then I'm going to see how good a job it did. And you can kind of see there's some issues. I'm going to go ahead and use the lasso tool to get that. Again, we just go to the polygon lasso. L is in lasso, and so holding the Option key will remove this piece of grass from the selection. That's what I want to do because the girl is selected. That's what I selected with the object. And I'm just being careful, going slowly, clicking once and not double clicking until I get to the end where I go 1, 2, and that allows me to select that. I can kind of see a piece here as well. Notice how holding the Option key to start the subtraction, and you kind of notice how you can get really close and then do a better job. Zooming out and zooming in, that's why it's so important to have the Command plus and minus features. Holding the Option key down to take away from the selection because I don't want this piece in there. and just looking around to see if there's anything that's missed. Like this part was missed, so I'm going to add to the selection. So holding the shift key down allows me to add to the selection. And notice how I can go outside of the selection because I'm adding, so I can be very not worrying about the little parts. The hair we're going to have to figure out in a moment, but so far we're just kind of looking around the edge, which is normally what I do. And obviously here we're going to remove from the selection, hold the Option key down, and then just kind of go along the shirt and like this. And we're going to zoom down. Hands are in the selection. There's a little issue here. Hold the Option key. And you can be a lot more, once you start doing this, more thoroughly, you can always be a lot more careful. And I'd say that's fine too. Okay, so now we have the girl selected up to the waist here. And so what I'm going to do is click on my mask button way at the bottom of the layers palette. And you'll see that we get a mask. And what I'm going to do here for the hair is I'm going to use a brush tool with a soft area, and it's going to soften the hair, because notice it doesn't look natural, not like part of the underlying shark layer. I'm going to turn that off so it doesn't confuse me just by turning the eyeball on. Anyway, we're back in the mask layer, and what I'm going to do is hit the B for brush tool, and you can see it right here. And up at the top here, I'm going to select the soft round brush, and notice that it gives me a hardness of 0 and a size. I'm going to go ahead and pick a size of about maybe 50. And notice that I have a nice soft brush, and watch what happens when I use the brush. Obviously I'm painting with white because that's what's the foreground on my mask layer, so I'm now seeing the layer itself, and I don't want that, so I'm going to undo, and I'm going to instead paint with black on that layer. And notice how that softens. Notice how I'm not painting right on the layer, because if I did, it would just make a hole. But I'm using the edge of the brush because I lowered the amount of hardness in this brush to something that is softer. It's going to make it more feathered. So in essence, I'm kind of just hand feathering that mask. This allows that hair to look, doesn't look super natural, but it looks a little bit more authentic as far as like how this is going. Now I'm going to zoom in here and make the brush smaller with the bracket keys, minus bracket, and then I'm just going to get this area right here. And this kind of, I'm feeling okay with this. Again, this is not going to be that important, but it does do a better job on the hair as far as getting these things to look more authentic. Okay, so the girl layer is done. Let's take a look at the shark layer. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the shark layer, zoom in, and I can see right away if I see the girl layer and the shark layer definitely needs to get bigger. So what I'll do is transform that layer, and we can do that through Edit, Free Transform, or that command shortcut that you need to know, Command T. And then what I'm going to do is, without holding the Shift key down in this case, I'm just going to zoom it in. And I'm going to make this shark the entire size of this, and plus a little bit more, because I know I need it a little bigger. And I'm also going to change the width, make it fatter. By holding the Shift key down, this allows me to make the shark a little bit fatter, which is I know I'm going to need for this work. Once it looks a little bit like this, go ahead and hit the return button to set those things, and you can kind of see how the girl is going to actually fit better at the top of this shark. So let's zoom into this shark and see what we've got. Well, we've got some issues. First off, I do not want this fish that's sucked onto the end of the tail of the shark to be there. So I'm going to show you now how you can remove objects from an image, just make them disappear. I'm going to use my lasso tool, polygon lasso, and what I'm going to do is draw outside a goodly amount of this fish without going outside of the shark. So something like this. And then once I've selected this fish, I'm going to hold the Shift key down and the big delete button on the Mac keyboard here, and it's going to bring up this fill window. And what I want to change or select here is the content aware. And what it's going to do is going to look at the content that I selected and try to delete it based on what's around that content. I'm going to hit the OK, and you can see I'm going to hit Command D. And you can see that it did a great job of removing the fish completely from the skin while keeping the skin intact. Let's see if we could do it for this area as well. So I'm just going to be very careful and select the fish and its shadow, and just kind of make a selection around this area. Shift delete, hit OK, and you can kind of see that it actually did a pretty good job of deleting that as well. And I'm just looking around to see how everything else looks, and it looks pretty good. I'm going to remove this fish. Oh, I want to remove this, so let's go ahead and just do that. So that's one way of deleting things. Shift delete and then content aware. That's one way of getting rid of things. And you can see sometimes it doesn't work great, but you know, I think we're going to be fine with this. Now, another possibility is to use the clone stamp tool. If you select S for stamp, what the clone stamp tool does is it allows you to hold the option key down to select some sample area. So for instance, I say I want to get rid of this little black thing. I know there's no black thing here, so I'm going to hold the option key down, click once with my mouse, let go of the option key. Now go over here, and you can see that wherever I originally clicked, it'll actually fill in that area with the thing here, and it will move with my mouse. So if I go over here and just continue to work, it'll actually be anything that's to the right and a little bit lower where I initially clicked, it will go ahead and fix. So in this case, I'm actually see if I can get a little bit more of that fish away. And so for this area, I see something that looks about right here, and I wish it was here. So maybe I'll hold the option key down, click here once, move over here, and you can kind of see that it's just cloning wherever I initially clicked to this new area. And again, the way you do that is you hold the option key down, sample an area. You can see that the icon changes, let go, and the first click will then start the sampling, and then from that point on, the location of the sample will always be relative to where your brush is. So that's the clone stamp tool. S for clone stamp if you want to jump to it. And that's another thing that you could use to fix something. So now that I've clone stamped most of this out, and I can still see a little bit of stuff here. So again, I'm going to make the brush size smaller with the bracket. It's a clone stamp tool. Hold the option key, sample from here, and then I'm just going to move it over here. Sample from here, move here, sample, move, sample, move. And the idea is sample, move is to make it look as normal as possible, just so when I look at it, I don't automatically see any issues, and that looks okay. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to be cutting this shark out of the area that it's in. The tool I'm going to use to try, we might as well try it, is the object select tool. So I'm going to zoom out so I can see the shark, so I can select it. I'm going to marquee around the shark. I'm going to hold the space bar if I need to adjust the marquee, and then I'm going to let go and see what happens. Did a pretty good job, but not perfect. You can kind of see it's getting the shadows a lot of the places here, and that's not a good thing. So I'm going to deselect it, Command D, and I'm going to try the other tool, the quick selection tool. And that allows me to paint inside of the shark. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to make the paintbrush a little bigger, and I'm going to paint starting at the head, and I'm just going to paint, and you notice how it picked this area up. I'm going to hold the option key down, and being very careful, I'm going to deselect that area, and then if it does what it just did, I'm going to go back over it and select that area. Same thing here. I'm going to hold the option key down to take away from the selection, but being careful never to cross over the boundary, and then go back and see if that helps. And in both of these cases, it didn't help, so I'll probably need the lasso tool. But let's continue down. As you can see, I'm going to hold the option key down and let go of this, and then click here. It doesn't seem that this technique is working as well as I had hoped. And although it does a good job for the top, it's not doing a great job for anything. So let's deselect, Command D, and what I'm going to do is just quick select this part, and now I'm just going to use my polygon lasso and do this the old-fashioned way, because it's just too difficult to like pick up. So I'm going to take away from the selection here, so holding the option key down, I'm going to start, and now I can let go of the option key, and I'm just going to trace around my shark here. And I don't want this part, so I'm going to just double click, and I don't want this part. So again, holding the Option key, starting outside, and then just moving my way around the fin here until I get to right around here, and then just letting go. Now I'm going to add to the selection, so holding the Shift key down, starting on the inside of the shark, letting go of the Shift key, and now I'm just going to follow my way around this shark and just take my time. Maybe I'll speed up the video here. There we go. And you can see this is a lot like Illustrator in that you're kind of using the pen tool in a lot of ways to make a selection. Now be careful, don't double click, because if you do, that means you'll need to be starting over. So just something to think about when you're selecting. Just be very careful to click once. I've learned over many years not to do that, and I'll probably do it while you're watching, of course. Obviously, if I had a Wacom tablet, this might be smoother if it were like a Wacom tablet, but without a Wacom tablet, the polygon lasso tool is just an easy way to keep going without having to like have drawing skills. Okay, we're almost there. You can see as I get to the rounded areas, I make sure I put a lot of points in without double clicking. And I'm just going to ignore that part. And we're almost there. Okay, this looks like where we started. I'm going to go back to the beginning here, and there is my selection. Looks pretty good. So in order to see how this selection really looks, we'll go ahead and click on the mask button, and we have now masked out the shark. If we have any issues that we see, we can always go into the mask using our brush tool, B for brush, and we can either get rid of these things, just like this, if I see something that's just obviously too bright, or we can bring stuff back if we've cut something out. Now, I would love this not to be so harsh, this edge, which it looks like it very much is, as you can kind of see. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this mask, and I'm going to double click it to open up the properties panel, and I'm going to give it a little bit of a feather. And you can see how this made everything a little bit softer. I'm also going to scroll down here and let's see if I can find it. I'm going to shift the edge. Now this is a nice feature. I can actually make the edge go in a little bit, so you can kind of see that it's right on the edge here. But if I wanted to shift the edge in, you can notice that it actually cuts more of the fish off. So if there's anything that you did where it's just too far on the outside, you can always shift the edge using this slider. So giving it a little bit of feather, a little bit of a shift of an edge in, and also I'm going to smooth everything out because the polygon lasso did a great job, but it was a little bit harsh on some areas, a little bit straight. And by smoothing things, we're going to get a nice smooth selection. Once I'm happy with what I'm seeing, I'm going to hit OK, and you'll notice that that selection now looks a lot better against a dark background, which is what we're going to really want to use. Okay. So now I've got my girl and I've got my shark. So we're going to marry those two things together in the next video.